Hey, what's going on, guys? Another video, back with another video. It's me, Jay. Yeah, we're gonna talk about yet another Wizard of Oz adaptation, and that is the adaptation by the Muppets Wizard of Oz, starring alongside Ashanti, the R&B singer. And we're gonna get into a little bit of the Muppets, a little bit of their history, and a little bit of their history with Disney, and then we're gonna talk about and a little bit of Ashanti's story, who she is and who they are. And we're going to then talk about the movie itself and the differences between that and the other adaptations that we've already talked about. So, firstly, about the Muppets. The Muppets were the creation of Jim Henson. They started off as part of a variety show called Sam and Friends in 1955. Um, By the 1960s, it started off with Ralph the dog and then later Kermit the Frog. By the 1960s, he began to add other characters. They were called Muppets because it was a combination of um, uh, the word puppet and the word, uh, I think it's monster. Anyway, it was a word marionette, marionette, a combination of marionette and puppet, because they weren't like traditional puppets. He made the puppets himself, right? So he started off with Ralph the dog and Kermit the Frog, and by the 1960s, he had founded Jim Henson Studios, and his studio was very successful. By the 70s, particularly in 1974, he created his own television show, The Muppet Show, and this show lasted for 5 seasons. For a while, he did sketches on the first season of Saturday Night Live in 1975, right? And of course in 1969 he began to work with in creating Sesame Street. But and you know, and in 1979 also, 1979, 10 years after that, 10 years after the creation of Sesame Street, he produces the first Muppet movie. And then he produces The Great Muppet Caper in 1981. And with the help of Frank Oz, The Muppets Take Manhattan in 1984. So Jim Henson is doing pretty well. By 1989, Disney expresses interest in buying his company. And they do a special in 1990 where the Muppets go to Disney World and they meet with Mickey Mouse, they meet with Donald Duck, they meet with all of those. Because unbeknownst to even Jim Henson himself, shortly after that, Jim Henson would pass away. So ultimately, the deal falls through with regards to Disney. Disney does not gain the rights um, to the Muppets at that time. It falls in the hands of another company, and for a while in the Sesame Street workshop. But by 2004, the companies merge, and Disney does take full control of the Muppets. Now, only the Muppets, because when he was originally negotiating the deal in 1989, he said the characters for Sesame Street. We talked about this in the Street Gangs video about Sesame Street. The characters for Sesame Street were off the table. They were non-negotiable. They were not to be sold. Only the original Muppet characters. So Big Bird, Snuffleupagus, Oscar the Grouch, Elmo. They didn't go to Disney as part of the sale. But it took several decades for that to actually happen. So this film comes out in 2004, 2005. And this is the first production that Disney ever does of a Muppet movie. They would go on to produce other Muppet movies, later on, right? But really they had control of the Muppets, but they were doing nothing with them. They were just kind of sitting on them. But they decided to once again dip their toes in the world of the Wizard of Oz with a Muppet version of the Wizard of Oz. And they wanted to have a pop singer be the main focus of it. And they auditioned several. They auditioned Jessica Simpson, they auditioned Hilary Duff. Neither one of them were successful, and Ashanti got this part. Now, who is Ashanti? Ashanti uh, was a singer from Glen Cove, New York. She had been acting in movies ever since she was a little kid as an extra in uh, Malcolm X in 1992's Malcolm X. She was a part of that as an extra, and little small parts here and there. But ultimately, her big break comes when she gets in the early 2000s affiliated with Irv Gotti, Ja Rule, and the Murder Inc. Record label. She becomes a songwriter. She does ghost vocals for the likes of Jennifer Lopez on several songs, and she has her own song, "Foolish," which becomes a massive hit. So she is very popular at this time in the early 2000s. So in early to mid 2000s. So it is no secret why they would want to get her and capitalize on using her in this version. So what is the story? We go back to Kansas. Kansas is the setting, right? But this time, Uncle Henry is played by David Allen Greer, and Auntie M is played by Queen Latifah. This time, Dorothy, played by Ashanti, doesn't just have dreams of going to a land somewhere over the rainbow to escape her strict aunt and uncle. She also has dreams of becoming a pop singer. So a tornado hits, you know the story. She goes into her family's trailer. The trailer is blown away, and she arrives in the land of Oz. Now, interestingly enough, um, the Muppets play different parts. Kermit the Frog plays the Scarecrow. Gonzo plays Tin Thing, which he's basically a robot instead of a Tin Man. And Fozzie Bear plays the Cowardly Lion. They tell her that she has to go to Emerald City to get the wizard to grant her wish of becoming a pop star. Now, when it opens up, when she's in the diner, it's like a music video. Like Dorothy Gale, like you would see a music video, you would see the singing, and the Cyclone Records is Cyclone Records is her record label. You know what I mean? So it has that very musical motif even before she gets to Oz. So, and Miss Piggy is playing like four parts. Miss Piggy is playing the Good Witch of the Good Witch Glindola, the Wicked Witch of the West, the Wicked Witch of the East. She's playing all the parts of all the witches as well as appearing, as herself. A few other people make cameos in this. Quentin Tarantino is one who makes a cameo in this because he has the idea to use violence to overthrow the Wicked Witch of the West. Because he's known for at this time Kill Bill is very popular, Pulp Fiction, other Quentin Tarantino movies. He's known for these kind of snuff films, so they include him. Kelly Osbourne makes an appearance because when Ashanti as Dorothy goes to Emerald City, they put her in a makeup machine made by Skeeter, who's a scientist, right, at Emerald City, a makeup machine, and she goes into the makeup machine and she comes out as Kelly Osbourne. So, like, um, it's a little bit different. And how does she kill the Wicked Witch of the West? She throws her into bath water instead of throwing water on her. So that's a different twist. When they finally discover who the Wizard of Oz is, the big secret behind the Wizard of Oz, played by Jeffrey Tambor. They discover that he's an ordinary man, and he cannot give Dorothy her wish of being a singer. You know what I mean? Because he doesn't have that ability. But one other minor alteration in this film that's different is when the flying monkeys take Dorothy away, right? And after she kills the Wicked Witch of the West, she then takes control of the flying monkeys and force them to rebuild the Tin Man, who gets broken up in the skirmish, played by, of course, Gunzo. Jim Henson's son is in this movie as well. Clifford, the big red dog from the cartoon, makes a cameo in this. He's a club manager at the. Instead of the poppy fields being a field, it is a club. And Clifford, the big red dog, is the club manager. So that's a little bit different. But by the end of it, Dorothy does go home. She had the slippers, the silver slippers. They're silver slippers again. They're not ruby red slippers. But she clicks the slippers, and then she ends up on stage singing with the Muppets. There are different songs composed than in the original. It turns into a musical, and some of the songs are pretty good. They are composed by Michael uh, Giacchino, but it's history making in the sense that it was Ashanti's first role. She would go on a little while later to star in Coach Carter, and that will be her first, big major screen role. But like I said, we said it. We talked about it when we talked about WrestleMania 9 when she sang "America the Beautiful." She was everywhere at this time. She was a huge star. So it's no surprise that they wanted her too. It aired on television, of course, ABC. It was part of their lineup, and it was a way to reintroduce the Muppets. The Muppets hadn't been seen for decades on TV. And at one time in the 1970s, like I said, they were a fixture on television. But it was also the beginning of an era and the end of an era. It was the first time Disney was working with them, but it was the last time that Jim Henson's company would be working with them because the company got merged into Disney. So, um, that was it was the end of an era. They'd been working. He's been working with the Muppets since the founding of the Muppets. I mean, this company, and no longer would they be because Jim Henson was he's been gone already for 15 years, but because he passed away in 1990. But you know, his company was still fighting to not be acquired by Disney because at the end of the negotiations in 89, 90, he decided that he didn't want to be part of the Disney family, much like L. Frank Baum's family didn't want his material in Wizard of Oz to be part of the Disney family, but ultimately they both became part of the Disney family, like Star Wars, like Marvel, like ESPN, like ABC, like the WWE. Like they all, Disney eventually all gobbled them up, right? That seems to be Disney's mission to gobble up everything you love as a kid, right? And make it all part of one contiguous family. The Simpsons too, with the acquisition of 20th Century Fox in 2019, and Family Guy, American Dad, and all that shit. You know, Planet of the Apes. I mean, a lot of the stuff we talk about on this channel eventually becomes mostly everything we talk about on this channel that has to do with pop culture that doesn't have to do with politics becomes part of the Disney family eventually. You know what I mean? So, Wizard of Oz and the Muppets, that both happened to them. But, you know, and we talked about Ashanti before and, her reality show with her husband, Nelly. But this was pretty good, this one. They talked to Ashanti how she felt working with the Muppets. She said that she loves children, and it was kind of like working with kids, working with the Muppets. You know, they do well working with celebrities, real well working with a lot of celebrities. That was their speciality, working with live action celebrities on stuff like this. So I don't know where you can really purchase um, where you can really purchase this piece of media, but to me, it was pretty good, man. I was a huge Ashanti fan at the time, and of course, the Muppets. Come on, man, they're classics, man. You know what I mean? One of the first cartoons I loved, and this was produced by Disney because this is when they were in the negotiation phase, was the Muppet Babies. Because in the Muppet movie, in the Muppets Take Manhattan, the 1984 one by Frank Oz. I mean, ironically enough, he has the same last name as uh, the location of the film. Uh, he plays, of course, he's known for the voice of Yoda. He's known for the voice of um, Bert from Bert and Ernie. You know what I mean? But he also was Jim Henson's apprentice. He mentored under Jim Henson, and he directed Muppets Take Manhattan. But there's a fantasy sequence in there where Miss Piggy is um, is imagining her and Kermit when they first met as babies, and they take that and they make it into a cartoon, the Muppet Babies. And I love that. That when I was a kid, I loved that cartoon, the Muppet Babies. So um, I was always a huge Muppets fan. So seeing them take this on, and they would take on other classics too. They would do Cinderella. They would do A Christmas Carol. They would do movies with Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan. They did a movie with. So they did a lot of stuff, but this was their first one with Disney, and this was their return to movies after a very long time. Uh, so I mean, after a number of years, like at least 10 or 12, years, and this would they would eventually return to TV as well on ABC, the new Muppet Show in 2015. So this one is worth a view as well. You can check this one out.